Eat like a king who's on a budget. 3 tasty options, fries, drink, and nuggets. All for $5. Wait, that can't be right. Just confirm that that's the real price. BK, have it your way.
Brainiacs, welcome to another Sunday. It's NFL Week 3. Wow, we're already past 2 weeks of the NFL season. It feels like it's flown by, but now I'm starting to gauge how good these teams actually are. I've got my friend Gabriel Cicerico with me for another Sunday morning stream. Kahan is not here again. He's playing some golf this morning on a work outing, but he'll be watching football. And then he's probably going to be back live with us next week. We might do a trio or something like that. So come on in this week for all your start-sit questions, and we're going to go through these games, talk about how they're going to end up. But Gabe, how you doing today? Give me some feelings about football.
Charlie, I'm doing well, and I totally agree with you. Week 3 is you're getting around that corner where you start to have a sense of okay, this is what these teams might look like. And, the first 2 weeks have been exciting. I think week 2 was much better than week 1 in terms of fantasy production, some higher scoring games and things of that nature. So I'm really looking forward to week 3, honestly.
Yeah, are your Super Bowl picks still the same, or have they changed already after 2 weeks?
They definitely have changed. I think the Packers are starting to really become a favorite on the NFC side. And, I picked the Lions on that side at first, but the Packers killed them in week 1. And then in the AFC, I like the Bills. The Bills are still pretty good. So more so on the NFC side, but AFC looks good.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. But we got some news in the early morning today. So if you're still looking at your fantasy lineups, if you've got Juwan Jennings or Brock Purdy in any of your lineups, you got to take them out. They are not going to play this week. It's the 49ers against the Cardinals. We're going to be seeing Mac Jones again. 49ers are looking brutal. How are we analyzing this situation right now for the 49ers against the Cardinals this week, Gabe?
It's crazy how this team just is crippled every single year. I mean, last season, that was probably the biggest takeaway was they didn't have any players, and the 49ers were pretty bad last year, but everyone was like, oh, they're going to be fine because they're so unhealthy. Like this season, they're all going to be healthy. And it's just the same story. It's deja vu, I think, for 49ers fans. They're all injured again. No Brock Purdy, no Juwan Jennings, no George Kittle. Their offense is going to rely on McCaffrey and Ricky Pearsall. And, the Cardinals haven't looked great, but at the end of the day, they're 2-0. This is going to be a tough matchup for the 49ers when they're just relying on these guys on their bench, with no disrespect to any of their bench players. But it's just crazy to me how it's the same story this year like it was last season.
Yeah, so Ricky Pearsall definitely starting, right? We have to. We could imagine that he's going to have a great target share this game. Hopefully he'll get in the end zone too. In Superflex, are we considering Mac Jones? I know for the FantasyBrainz League, our creator league, we have Brock Purdy, so we're in this. Let me get your opinion on this situation where we're deciding who to start this week. We've got in our Superflex Mac Jones right now, but we have Kenneth Walker on our bench, and we also have Breece Hall that we just acquired on our bench. So what do you think? Mac Jones in a super flex or Kenneth Walker this week with or Kenny's in our lineup, I think already. We're flexing him because Zach Charbonnet's out. But then we have Breece Hall too.
Ooh, it's tough. I think Mac Jones is a realistic stat line for him would be 150 to 200 yards, maybe throws for a touchdown and probably turns the ball over once. But I think Breece Hall might struggle today. I like Tampa Bay's running defense, and the Jets offense just isn't very dynamic, and we'll see what it is. I mean, week 1, they were fantastic. Week 2, they were abysmal. So there has to be some sort of regression towards the mean of either side.
Breece Hall just hasn't gotten the carries for me recently. Last week, he only had 10 carries, 6 fantasy points. That was not what we were looking for. But we got a question coming in here from Slapdog, our bestie. We're rolling with Tet or Egbuka this week. Tetero McMillan or Egbuka. Egbuka was a little bit injured, but he looks to be fine. He's playing. What do we think?
It's going to be Tet for me. Tet's been fantastic the first 2 weeks. And the Buccaneers came out and said that they're going to monitor Egbuka's snaps, which doesn't clear as day say they're going to play him less. But I don't like anything like that. I don't really like to hear monitoring snaps, although it's a very weird phrase. At the end of the day, the Panthers play the Falcons, who honestly, their secondary has looked better than I expected in the first 2 weeks, but I still think is a bottom half secondary in the NFL. And although Bryce Young has been fantastic, Ted has just dominated the target share in Carolina. He's a clear number one there. I take him all day over Egbuka this week.
I'm not so sure I agree with you. So let's talk about this a little bit, because
Go for it.
I do think the peripherals around Tetaroa are looking a little bit better than the peripherals for Egbuka right now, where Egbuka's not seeing as high of a target share as Tetaroa is seeing, and we're seeing some touchdown dependence from Egbuka. It does seem like this could be a potential opportunity to sell high on a player like Egbuka, but you also have to remember this guy's a rookie. He's showing up these weeks. He's playing. He's making impact plays, like he's scoring these touchdowns for the Bucs. I don't think they're limiting him in this offense whatsoever, no matter what they say. I think that it's going to be the Egbuka and Mike Evans show against this Jets team. What I need to see is hopefully this Jets game will be a little bit higher scoring. If Justin Fields can actually play some good football, then we might see an actually good game, and we might see a way high scoring than the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons. And that's kind of where I lean for starting Egbuka, because this Falcons defense is legit. They are legit through 2 weeks, and I worry about this week in particular with this Panthers offense going up against this defense. I'm just not quite sure how else they're going to be able to get it done. I know it is going to run through Tet, but I'm not sure that they can get it done this week.
I don't know. I mean, the Jets game script is going to be much better than it was last week against the Bills. It's almost guaranteed. If it's worse, then they have some serious problems. But I love the role that Tet has in Carolina, and I don't think it changes that much with matchup week to week, which is why I really like him. Where Egbuka, we saw him score a ton of points in week 1, but there were 2 touchdowns that came with those points, where Tet's had 100 yards. He had 100 yards last week. He's getting double-digit targets in the first 2 weeks. Things like that, I think, are more consistent, and I like that consistency with Carolina than I think the question marks that come with Egbuka this week.
You've definitely got a higher floor for Tet. You're definitely right about that, where Tet's going to be getting, we're going to see between 7 and 10 or 11 targets for Tet this game. And so that's the stat line that we're expecting from Tet is, 6 or 7 catches for, I'm not even expecting a 100-yard game though, necessarily, because I mean, not even though, like I'm predicting him to get, 60 to 75 yards this game, because I don't think the matchup is necessarily there. And sure, that's, 12, 13, 14 PPR fantasy points. But I think Egbuka in a game where we could see this Jets-Bucs game, if both offenses are working as they can potentially work, and the defenses, kind of let up a little bit, and we see a 28 to 24 game, we could see, a touchdown from Egbuka. And then if Egbuka's stat line is 6 targets for 5 catches, where sure, maybe he had a couple less catches than Tet, but he has almost the same amount of yards, and then throw a touchdown on top where that chance is a lot higher, I feel a little bit more confident with him.
It's just how confident you think he is to score a touchdown. I feel like, because
I don't know if they have many other options to score touchdowns. I think has a higher chance, because I just think the Bucs have a higher chance of scoring more touchdowns than the Panthers this week.
I think that's fair. I can't really argue with that. I just like the safer floor more than Egbuka's ceiling, I think. Especially last week, we saw him get like 30 yards in the air. I mean, he did nothing last week. I just think there's a risk there that fantasy managers saw last week that has to be acknowledged, where Ted has had 2 strong weeks. Like, he's had 2 very good performances in his first 2 weeks. I don't really know why you go away with that.
Yeah, this is a good problem to have. I mean, if you have like Tetaroa and Egbuka as your wide receiver 2 and 3 on your teams now at this point, you're pretty happy with that. Let's look at the other side of the ball in these games. Let's start with the Panthers game, like we're talking about, the Falcons versus the Panthers. I mean, is that all guns go for fantasy players on the Falcons this week?
Yeah, I think so. Drake London's been dealing with some injuries, but you expect him to kind of find his stride. And I think this is going to be a good test for him, because I really liked what I saw in the short sample size last season, but this season's been a little bit shaky. And the Panthers is supposed to be that game. Like, you come in, you have a good week, and you ride that high, and I think this could be that for Penix. And Pitts has been good, which is really fun to say. And
Yeah, that's
obviously
my
Bijan
biggest
was great.
question for sure. Can we start Pitts this week? Can we put him in our lineup consistently? Because as we look at the tight end position in fantasy right now, it is bleak. It is
It's bad.
so bleak.
Mm-hmm.
I wanna walk through it with you actually, and let's go through guys that we're even like confident in general, like at all, basically. So the tight end one right now is obviously he already played. He's a week ahead, but it's Dalton Kincaid currently because he played Thursday night. Dalton Kincaid looks honestly solid compared to like the other options that we're seeing at tight end, but Tucker Kraft, he's the big breakout this year at tight end too. Juwan Johnson has been heavily involved, but nobody really is excited about starting Juwan Johnson in their lineups. Although, even though I say that, you need to have Juwan Johnson in your lineups. I think he is, the way that they play offense and the way that his target share has been, he is a legit offensive weapon this year. There's no reason not to start him. How do you feel about Zach Ertz like going forward this season? Because he's the tight end 4 right now.
Dude, Zach Ertz has been pretty cool. I've been surprised with his production. Granted, it's been touchdown reliant in week 1 and 2, but even in week 2, like he put up a ton of yards. I like Ertz's. I like his outlook moving forward. I think
He
Debo
plays
and
Vegas
Harry
this
get
week.
more. What was that?
He plays Vegas this week.
Yes, I like him this week. I mean, look, Jaden Daniels isn't there. He's injured this week. He
Yeah,
won't be
you like
playing.
him with Mariota. Would you start him over other options at tight end? I feel like I would avoid Zach Ertz at all costs.
I would avoid Zach Ertz this week. Who are your backup tight ends that you're confident starting over
Well,
him?
like we're talking Pitts here. So Pitts, you could easily have both Pitts and Ertz on your team. Who are you starting, Pitts or
I'm
Ertz?
starting Pitts, no question, this week. Over
Right.
Zach Ertz.
Juwan Johnson or Ertz?
I'd start Juwan Johnson, no question.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I don't think we're very confident in Ertz moving forward, but there are other guys like Tyler Warren who has
He's
broken
good.
out. He looks like he's a weekly starter. You can confidently put him in your lineup. McBride, Bowers, obviously. And then we've got after that, it's a pretty quick drop off where Sam Laporta and Kyle Pitts have both been involved, but don't have necessarily high ceilings that we would like.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. There's not much to say over there. I mean, it's what,
Yeah.
7 receptions for Pitts and then 4 in week 2. Same with Laporta, had a big week 1, had a relatively quiet week 2, which was surprising because they put up 1,000,000 points. But we saw that from Laporta last season. They're just like
Right.
fine
But
starters.
those are almost guys that we have to put in our lineups each and every week. Like, I think those are, if you're in that, because we only 12 tight ends are getting started in your league max. So then there's guys like Jake Ferguson, Harold Fannin, and Travis Kelce. I think those guys are all streamers at this point. Like Ferguson looks really good because their offense is so good. So I think he's somebody that you can week in and week out hope for a touchdown with, even though he doesn't even have a touchdown yet.
Ferguson's strong. I mean, first week he had 2 targets in the end zone that, I mean, he kind of dropped. He got hit pretty hard, but he had a chance to get a touchdown. And then week 2, he put up some good yards, so he's good. Kelce had a touchdown last week when I told you all to start him last week, and he did well. And then,
Are we getting a touchdown out of Ferg today?
I mean, maybe, like, the Bears defense is pretty bad, so there's a good chance that the Cowboys score a ton of touchdowns.
I think it'll be high scoring. Yeah.
Yeah, but Javante's been good in the end zone. I mean, having CeeDee Lamb and Pickens are going to be ahead of Ferguson every time in the end zone too. So I can't promise a touchdown, but he has a good shot of scoring this week for sure.
And then after that, I mean, after him, there's like literally no tight ends that you're comfortable starting. Jonnu, Noah Fant, Jake Tongas, well, George Kittle's hurt, and we've got Brendan Strange and David Njoku who have been a little bit disappointing. So the tight end position is looking bleak. That's why you really got to find those guys that are going to score touchdowns. I think Jake Ferguson has a great matchup against Chicago. If the Cowboys score 4 touchdowns this week, maybe he gets one of them. Obviously, Javonte is going to get his every week, but are we feeling really good about Javonte this week?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I've been very surprised
to.
with Javonte, but he's been fantastic in the first 2 weeks, and that production and efficiency in the red zone is great for Javonte owners. And again, this matchup against the Bears is just so favorable. I'm very, very high on Javonte this week.
Yeah, so we've got some 12 o'clock games coming up in the next hour. The first one that I want to talk about is the Packers and the Browns. How do you see this game shaping up? 2 stellar defenses so far.
Yeah, people look at the Browns and they go, at least from like an outside in perspective, I feel like a lot of people are, oh, this team sucks. I don't have to worry about them. The Packers are going to kill them. And that's just not the case. Like the
Mm,
Browns play close games and they have a good defense. Granted, I think the Packers will win and it could be relatively comfortable. I'm not going to lie here, or I'm not going to sit here and say, like, oh my gosh, the Browns are going to win. I think they're going to win. Like, I don't think that's true. But the Packers are on the road. The Browns have shown a very good run defense. And although their secondary has had problems at times, they will play this game close. And Green Bay should come out with the victory, but I'm still not starting any of the receivers. Tucker Kraft injured himself in practice. That has to be monitored in this game. And then Jordan Love hasn't been a great fantasy option. And your sit of the week this week is Josh Jacobs. So honestly, I want to hear a little bit about that from you right now. Like
yeah.
Josh Jacobs, sit of the week.
Yeah, so this game's really interesting. Two great defenses. We saw what the Browns did to somebody like Derrick Henry last week. I think this Browns defense has some definite anger to them, and they've got some feistiness that I think they're going to hang in there with the Packers a little bit more. I think it might make it a little bit harder. I've been seeing a lot on Twitter, people calling this the breakout game for Matthew Golden. They think he's going to show up this week because this run defense for the Cleveland Browns is really, really good. And so I think that Josh Jacobs is a definite sit because he was also banged up all week. We weren't sure whether or not he was going to be able to go. He is going. And the way that I see this kind of playing out is he's got to be on your bench, because if the Packers are as good as we say they are and they roll the Browns, I don't think Jacobs plays very much later in on the game, because they'd be up by a lot and they want to keep him healthy. There's just no reason against the Cleveland Browns, because yes, the Cleveland Browns defense is really good, but the Cleveland Browns as a team aren't really that good. They can't really figure out what they're doing on offense. They still got blown out by the Ravens, even though they kind of like kept it in there. That was a weird game, but
Yeah, they never
Jacobs
really
is a total avoid for me, because I just don't see it happening this week. And if it's a close game, I think it's close because the Browns have stopped the run,
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see that playing out for him. Do you agree? Jacobs is a star running back that we are basically sitting, and he was drafted as your third player on your team but I would start a Javonte Williams over a Jacobs this week.
I think that's a great shout. Yeah, if you have that guy on your bench, Javonte Williams, maybe like a J.K. Dobbins, someone of that nature.
I don't know about Dobbins, but
that's the thing, right? Then I think there's a big
Swift,
teardrop on.
yes.
Like I said,
Yeah.
Dobbins out loud, and then you're like, wait a minute, like, could you ever really start like J.K. Dobbins over Josh Jacobs? Like, I don't know. Like, you need to have yeah, that's what I'm saying. You need to have like I'm backtracking on what I first talked about. You need to have like a clear player that has a fantastic matchup, and you really need to hope that they like find the end zone in order to start them over Josh Jacobs, or even if you do have someone like Dobbins or Swift or someone of that caliber, like you're not starting them over Jacobs.
I'm starting Swift this week over Jacobs.
Okay.
I'm starting Bill Krosky-Merritt over Jacobs. I'm definitely starting Jordan Mason.
Definitely Jordan
These are guys that you draft, but those are guys you drafted after Josh Jacobs. That's what I'm saying. Honestly, like when you're going to put me in a blender between Ramondre Stevenson this week and Josh Jacobs, I think it's pretty close. I think that Ramondre easily could outscore Josh Jacobs this week. I don't know if I have the guts to like actually do that in my fantasy lineup, but you best believe in my DFS lineups, I've got all Ramondre and no Josh Jacobs. So
that's fair. I want to talk about the Browns offense for a second, because Cedric Tillman's been involved a little bit. Jerry Jeudy hasn't been doing too much. They have two tight ends that play. And then is this the game that we see a ton of Quinshon Judkins? Like we saw Judkins play last week a lot more than expected against the Ravens. And he was extremely efficient in those garbage time moments where he's averaging like 5.6 yards a carry and scored like 10 fantasy points. Is this the day that we see a ton of Judkins? And even if we do, does he do anything against a stellar Packers defense?
Yeah, I think I saw you made a video saying for people to hold off a little bit, but I am full steam ahead. So you're going to have to argue with me a little bit on this, because like I really think that everyone should put Quinshon Judkins in their lineups this week, because I think it comes down to this. If the Cleveland Browns are down by a lot in this game, we saw what happened last week where it was his first game and he still got like surprising amounts of involvement in this offense, particularly in the passing game, where I think that if they're down by a lot, Quinshawn might go out there and just have 5 receptions. And if he has 5 receptions, he's going to have a really good fantasy day because he's going to probably have at least 30 receiving yards to go along with that. And so that's already 8 points. Whatever he gets on the ground is bonus. He could score a touchdown this week. Who knows how, because he is an elite prospect too. Like he could just run for a touchdown. Who knows what he's going to do? They have a great offensive line. I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table. I think that he was deflated so much because of everything that was going on in the offseason. And now that he had an intro week, he's ready to actually break out this week.
I don't know. I have a pretty big rule of guys where if I have to rely on their garbage time, I really try to fade away from starting those players because
That's fair.
my concern is to underestimate a full NFL roster like the Cleveland Browns. And if they do play this game close, I think it's a very defensive-minded game, which means the Packers are also stopping most of Judkins' production. And if he's rushing,
Are they though? If it's close,
I think so because
you're saying if it's like 10-10.
I think if it's like 10-10, Judkins probably hasn't done so much, and you're hoping that he had that one touchdown. I think Vegas has him about 10 carries this game, which who knows if that's right or wrong. They have no clue, just like we have no clue.
Well, Vegas only has him getting 10 carries.
I think it's 10.5 carries today.
Wow.
10.5 carries for about 40 yards.
I see no way that he doesn't.
Yeah, so that's one of the most bet on lines today because they don't know as much as we don't know because
I don't think they can use anyone else though. Like, I mean, Dylan Sampson is good and they have like Judy's been super inconsistent, super unreliable. Like Cedric Tillman has been solid, but I think everything's got to run through Judkins at this point.
And everything runs through Judkins, and he doesn't get that touchdown. He has 12 carries for 50 yards and 3 catches for 20. Let's benefit
that's
off
pretty
20
good.
Yards. That's an okay performance, right? That is
that's fine.
What?
That could be better than Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, that's like 11 to 12 points at your flex.
Yeah, I would start Jacobs over Judkins, by the way. So I would still start Judkins behind the Swifts, the Masons, the Pollards. I don't know about Chuba. I don't think I would start Chuba over them.
I would start Chuba over.
Let's talk Pollard in this Colts Titans game that's next. This is really interesting because the Colts have been hot and now they're going away for the first time. They're going to Tennessee. Some people have been calling for a trap game. Some people are calling for Daniel Jones to fall apart. Will Daniel Jones fall apart in Tennessee this week, or is he going to put up another 40-point performance?
Dude, I've been looking at this a lot because I've never seen someone go from what Daniel Jones has. Like literally the quarterback 3 in Minnesota comes to Indianapolis, wins the starter job, and just lights it up in the first 2 weeks. But now he's like the most bet on quarterback of the week. And you're like, whoa, am I really that confident in Daniel Jones? This is another bad team, good defense. Like the Titans defense is pretty good. And they're very disciplined, coached really well. It's just their offense is like god awful. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, do I think the Colts win? Like probably. But can they win on like a 17-14 game with Jonathan Taylor rushing for a touchdown and Daniel Jones throwing it for like 175 yards? Like, yeah. And I think that is a lot more likely than the opposite. I do.
So I see this Colts team as the defense kind of sucks. I'm not a big fan of their defense. So I get what you're saying. The Titans might not score a lot of points because they're the Titans and they just might not score a lot of points. But the Titans played the Broncos, and who did the Titans play last week?
I'm blanking, but I can take a look.
I caught that pass.
Oh, I'm totally blanking. Who did the Titans play last week?
No, the Titans.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm looking up.
They played the Rams. That's why 2 hard matchups. Yeah. It was 2 tough matchups. I was thinking 2 tough matchups, and now we finally get to see this Cam Ward offense against a little bit of a lackluster defense in the Indianapolis Colts. So I kind of think that we're going to see a little bit more of a shootout in this game. I know it's in division, but I really do think that if Daniel Jones can start off the game well and really feel some confidence, I think they're going to go off a little bit. And that's why Michael Pittman down here is my start of the week, where I think that we could see a little bit of like, who's Daniel Jones versus Cam Ward? Why did that, why did that score 35 points each? Because I think these defenses might not really have each other figured out at all yet. Like, we see these divisional matchups always be so close because these teams play each other so often. They know the styles. They watch so much film. They understand everything to a crisp T on these games. But I think that with this weird Daniel Jones offense that they have going on that looks awesome because he isn't making errors and he's finding his receivers. Pittman has had a couple tough matchups. Last week, obviously, he had a tough matchup against Surtain, but the week before, he had a really good week. And I think that he is the wide receiver one for this interesting offense. And I think that this game doesn't need to be a trap game. I think it could just be a really good football game. There's no reason why they can't go out there and score a lot of fantasy points.
I think you're right. I don't know how much I like all in on that game script, I just kind of comes back to like,
no, I
am
get
I
that.
fully on board with this Colts offense? I don't know yet, but I mean, it remains to be seen. And
so you think the Titans defense has a pretty good chance of stopping this Colts offense, even though the Broncos couldn't do it?
I think that this Titans defense has a chance of keeping it where it's not like this blowout, like gunslinging game. I mean,
can
even
Jonathan Taylor be stopped? Can you physically stop him? Can anyone do that right now?
Jonathan Taylor is a great start every week. You know what I mean? Like, Jonathan Taylor is very involved in this offense. But like
Tyler Warren, you can't sit him.
Yeah, Tyler Warren, you have to. But like those
Michael Pittman were starting.
Those are players. Like you look at Warren
and Daniel Jones were starting. I'm just saying, where do you get this 17-14 game when we're starting all these players? We're starting Pollard. You used to like Calvin Ridley this week?
I do like Calvin Ridley this
right?
week.
It's probably the first one where it's like pretty good. I don't think we need to get trapped in this idea that this game could be a trap game. Let's start our players in this game and let's see a good football game here.
It's more so like how high scoring you think it is, because you're saying like the Broncos couldn't stop the Colts last week, but they still were in like the 20, like they scored like 26 or 28 points or whatever.
No, dude, it was like in the 30s.
Was that the game?
Yes. Bo Nix threw for 3 touchdowns. I'll give you the final score. Oh, it was 28-29. Yeah. Okay.
I don't think
that's high scoring. That's over 50 points.
No, that's like a good scoring game. But I'm looking at
over.
But if the Colts are scoring about 28 points
against the Broncos defense, how many points are they scoring against the Titans defense?
I think it'll be around the same. I don't look at this.
Okay, well that's a high scoring game. That would be good.
I don't look at this Colts team and think, oh my gosh, like when I think of like a high scoring shootout, I'm like 35, 42 points. Like they are just lighting it up. They cannot be stopped. They're gonna.
This isn't the week that the Colts get stopped, though. This is not the week, and this is the week that we see Cam Ward get a little bit more comfortable. You know what game might not be as high scoring? The Patriots and the Steelers. That game, it could be, though, because the Steelers defense hasn't been playing well through 2 weeks, but they could lock in. I imagine they're going to lock in a little bit more this week. Do you think it's going to be low scoring? Who are you starting in this game?
Defense is as bad as what we've seen so far, and they're a very well-coached team where you're like, can they actually be this bad? Because we haven't seen that like damn near in our lifetime. They're just always a very well-coached defense. Meanwhile, the Patriots, it's like I haven't been that impressed with their team. Like they're definitely have shown strides from last year that are better, but a lot of sloppy offense, some inconsistencies from drive to drive, and turnovers are an issue. So yeah, this game could be a sloppy one. I mean, I love Jalen Warren. He's someone who's
that's what I was gonna say.
Jalen Warren is a guy you start every week. Like DK's been, I'd say, underwhelming, and
I feel like I like the target share though, and I like how they use him where they're just chucking up balls to him at the end zone because they really don't have like a hammering running back when they get to when they get to like the 4 or 5 yard line. It just seems like they run these like honestly they're like hook or curl routes with DK because they're better than fades, and they just throw it like low, and Rodgers throws it really fast so that he can try to like box out the cornerback, and it kind of works. It worked last week one time.
It did, but you're like, okay, DK scored a touchdown last week, but he had like 30 yards. Or the week before he had like 80 yards, but didn't get in the end zone, and they scored a million times. Calvin Austin and Jalen Warren scored.
He's a guy I'm comfortable putting in my wide receiver 3 slot for sure. But
people
anything more than that,
this offense is like this alpha wide receiver 1, and I've just been telling our viewers over and over again, like he's never been that guy. He's not going to be that guy. And I'm not saying you can't like start him week to week as flex wide receiver 3 option, but I don't think we're ever going to see this elite, like, alpha wide receiver one as DK Metcalf. And on the flip side, like, the Patriots don't even have it. They don't have an alpha at all in New England. It's just really hard to start their receivers. I was high on Diggs. I was high on Douglas. Booty's had a role in this
That's the only one
offense.
we can start, Booty.
And yeah, Booty's been the only one you can right now.
I'm starting Ramondre in deeper leagues this week against the Steelers. Definitely Jalen Warren, like you said. I'm not taking DK Metcalf out of my lineup.
You shouldn't.
But outside of that, it's pretty tough to start anybody else. You're not starting any of the tight ends in this game. You can't really start Travion this week because you just don't think he's going to get enough. I mean, definitely not this week. So Drake May, I'm probably starting, but I think that's it for the game.
Yeah,
there's really nobody else.
Ups and downs too. It's like he might throw for 250 yards, but he's probably gonna have a turnover in that span, and he's gonna have drive through like, Jesus Christ, he just missed that wide open guy, or he's trying to do too much, or he should use his legs here and there. Like, he still has some growing pains too that needs to be figured out. But their offense looks much better than last season, and that's a good talking point.
We've got the backup bowl in Minnesota this week where Carson Wentz for the Minnesota Vikings is going to be playing against Jake Browning for the Cincinnati Bengals. This one's going to be fun because I love what Jake Browning came out and said, where he just is like, if he didn't have this like absolute confidence in himself, then he would be like worried, but instead he's just going to go out there and sling the ball. So Jamar Chase is no worries with him at all. T. Higgins, there are some question marks. So, let's talk T. Higgins for a second. Do we think that T. Higgins needs to be in your lineups? What can we expect from T. Higgins for the rest of the season with Jake Browning at the helm?
Yeah, T. Higgins is in a tough spot because even when Burrow was playing, like, Higgins is just in a weird spot where you're kind of hoping, like, week to week, where he kind of maybe finds the end zone and Burrow looks his way. And there's going to be some games where he has like 40 or 50 yards and doesn't get a touchdown, has like 4 receptions. But there are other weeks where he has like 11 catches, 100 yards at a touchdown, and he just explodes. And now we're going to see a lot more, I think, of the 3 to 5 catches, 40 to 60 yards. And then you have to hope that he gets in the end zone.
Yeah.
And that's frightening for me because it's almost like I think of like a Jalen Waddle role in Miami right now, where the last 2 weeks he scored points because he's been in the end zone. And are you going to have to anticipate them scoring a touchdown every single week for them to give you enough points to really win weeks? And that's when I take a big, like, whoa, like this is a scary spot, because relying on guys to get in the end zone every single week to score you points is a big fantasy no-no. And I think that's where Higgins is for a lot of the season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I'm more comfortable with Jalen Waddle at this point than T. Higgins. Now, before I go to Chase Brown, because we will get to him, but I want to jump over to the Minnesota side first. And let's talk about Aaron Jones is not playing, which opens up the whole world for Jordan Mason that we've been waiting for. I'm a big fan of this happening because this happened a lot earlier in the season than I thought it was going to happen. In all my best ball drafts, I was definitely more on the Jordan Mason side of things than the Aaron Jones side of things. Unfortunately, it was an injury that lets Jordan Mason come into the full running back role, but Aaron Jones has been injury prone for most of his career, and he's an older back. So we are now going to be given the opportunity to see what Jordan Mason can do with a backup quarterback in Carson Wentz throwing the ball. Does that make us a little bit worried at least, or are we still super excited for what Jordan Mason can do this week?
No, definitely excited, because what we've seen from JJ McCarthy in the first 2 weeks, really in 7 of the 8 quarters that the Vikings have played, has been just pretty terrible. And that's just the bottom line. The Vikings had the one good quarter, the fourth quarter against the Bears in week 1, where they had 3 touchdowns in that quarter, and they have done nothing outside of that. So now you bring in Wentz, who God knows what Carson Wentz is going to do this week. And I'm not telling you that Wentz is going to be, this insane playmaker and give you 4 touchdowns and do all these crazy things. But I think he has experience running an NFL offense.
Yeah.
And that's all that Jordan Mason needs, because it's going to be more controlled than what McCarthy was doing. And
through
Mason
him
is a workhorse back right this week. And what we saw when he was a workhorse last season was top 5 production, right? We're not talking about like some fringe top 15, top 20 guy. Like he had 3 to 4 elite weeks when McCaffrey was out last season with extreme usage and touchdown upside and catching short passes that like Mason right now is a very exciting start. And I would start him over a
pretty much
very
anybody.
majority of RBs.
Yeah,
I'm starting him over Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, definitely. He will be a top 12 back this week because he has the full workload, which what excites me most about him this week is his opening up with a pass catching ability where we don't know what Carson Wentz is going to bring to this offense. He might bring checkdowns. And if Aaron Jones was healthy and out there, Aaron Jones would be getting all of those checkdowns. But now that Jordan Mason has that role, we're going to get to see what he can bring in the passing game. We haven't gotten to see that before. Last year, in San Francisco, when Jordan Mason had the starting role, he didn't have the pass catching role. That was still Isaac Guerrero. So we need to see. I don't think that Jordan Mason is a worse pass catcher than Brian Robinson Jr. or like Tank Bigsby. Those are some bad pass catching running backs. I think Jordan Mason can bring an average level of pass catching ability this week. And in tandem with a backup quarterback playing, we could see 5 targets go his way this game. And against the Bengals' terrible defense, if Jordan Mason wants to run for 80 yards this week, a touchdown, and then tack on 3 catches to that is going to be a fantastic fantasy week that's going to bring you about 20 fantasy points. I would love that in my lineup. Chase Brown, Gabriel Cicerica, you just traded him away in our main dynasty league that we have together. I want you to walk me through kind of the mindset of that trade and why you went about doing it.
I love Chase Brown going into the season. He was my number 1 like must draft player. I told every single Brainiac to draft him. Every single one. Like,
so are you still confident going forward?
But I'm not as confident as I was going into the season because his pass catching that was like the main driver of why he was going to produce this season hasn't been there. And instead, they've been using him a lot on the ground and he hasn't been efficient in the red zone. So it's like he's not catching passes and he scored a touchdown in week 1, but he hasn't been rushing for as many yards as I would like. And we haven't seen a ton of those big plays that we did last season. And now they have a backup quarterback playing for the majority of the year.
I don't expect many checkdowns at all now.
No.
Jake Browning is not that guy.
I don't think that Chase Brown is going to catch a ton of passes. I don't think Chase Brown is going to get into the end zone as much as fantasy owners thought at the beginning of the season. And I need to see more production on the ground than the 3 yards per carry that we've been seeing for me to be more excited about Chase Brown like I was at the beginning. And that's unfortunate because I told the Brainiacs over and over again, like Chase Brown will be that guy. And unfortunately, we haven't seen that as much. Although his 99% snap share and him touching the ball in the backfield is definitely very promising. No one else rushes in Cincinnati. They don't even
because I cannot believe they brought back Samaje Perine. Oh my God. When I heard that they signed him, I wanted to throw up because the Bengals, whatever their love and enamoration that they have for Samaje freaking Perine, who is not a good fantasy football running back. He's, I guess, fine for pass blocking, but come on, you really can't find somebody better. And they just take Chase. The first week, Samaje was out there for a lot of the third downs, and that was really frustrating. But
he didn't touch
definitely,
the ball
Chase Brown he'll always get all the carries, at least for the rest of this year. But that's not exciting unless they have a really good matchup because they have a backup quarterback at play now. So it just does not look very good. I want to talk birds. I want to talk about the Birds and their receivers. They're going up against the Rams this week, a tough matchup. But will the Eagles have to throw the ball more this game if the Rams keep it close, or are we going to see similar to what we saw against the Chiefs?
I was going to say they don't have to, and that's the concern. It's like, is there really a game script besides them being down where they throw the ball more? And I think the answer is no. So then if the game is close,
they haven't even thrown a passing touchdown.
But like the Eagles beat the Chiefs, and Jalen Hurts didn't even have 100 yards passing. Like,
I know,
not even 100 yards.
So do we see a passing touchdown this week?
I mean, I can't, that's like I can't predict it. I don't know, but I don't
Yes,
know.
give me a yes or no. Come
I don't
on.
know if the game, like, honestly,
I
like, they
think
might
they get a
happen.
passing touchdown this week. I think there will definitely be a passing touchdown this week, and I think it will go to one of the two wide receivers.
I just can't be definite on that. I think there's a chance, but
There
like,
is a we have to so there's a pass to rush ratio, and right now they are obviously the most run heavy team that like they have ever been. It's like they're running at like between 60 and 70% of the time of their plays. It's an ungodly high number that usually isn't the case in the NFL. And I think that when we get through a full season, we're not going to see that number be as high as it was these first 2 weeks, first of all. Second of all, with that number being they pass the ball on 35% of plays, their touchdowns, their percent of touchdowns have 100% come on the ground. So there has to be some regression there because we should see throughout a 17-week season that they score if they do keep up with this 35% pass rate, which is super low, we should still at least see 35% of their touchdowns come through the air, and that's got to bring some value to these wide receivers. And so it's been 3 weeks, so 30%. I'm ready for one freaking passing touchdown now, okay?
okay. I mean, I like where you're coming from, Charlie. That is an educated statement that makes sense. And the good news
Yeah, one.
is the Rams, like their receiver, all they do is throw the football, and it's pretty awesome. If you have Puka
Yeah,
Nacua
they're fun.
or Devontae Adams, like those two are absolute yeses, big wins at the wide receiver
Every week,
spot
right?
every week because
What about Kyron, though? Are you
yeah,
worried?
Kyron is the concern, and I think there's a genuine concern there when
Yeah, not
they
even for matchup.
not even a matchup. Like they throw the football so much, and we haven't seen the big plays from Kyron, the touchdowns from Kyron. They played Blake Corum a little bit more
Yes,
in
that's
week
what needs
two,
to be brought
and
up.
no one is like, he's being like a little under the rug. And all of last season, people were laughing at like the idea of, oh, at the beginning of the last season, it was Blake Corum's going to come in and Kyron's not going to be worth anything, and then Kyron completely just threw that like away because he was fantastic. But
And he
now is
signed
this?
this offseason, so we were
Mhm.
confident in him.
But now it's like, is this actually the time you think about Blake Corum? Do we need to take that seriously, Charlie, or is it like Kyron's going to be fine?
Yes.
He'll figure it out because
No, Kyron is
I don't
not
think
a
so.
top 12 running back this
Mhm.
season. He's not because he's never been involved in the passing game. The Rams in general just don't throw it to their running backs. That's why these wide receivers are so good because they get so many freaking targets.
It's
But
crazy.
Kyron is not going to be a top 12 running back this year. If there are people out there in your league that still think that Kyron is a really, really good running back, that still like him, that he got that contract, you should definitely trade him because there are a lot of these young running backs that aren't producing right now. And if you can swap a Kyron Williams for a Quinshon Judkins, and Omarion Hampton, and Ashton Genty, those guys are going to be looking way better at the end of the season than Kyron Williams. And you're going to be much happier that you made that trade now than waiting for those players to go off. Because as soon as Omarion Hampton finally has his, 2 touchdown week with 95 rushing yards on 15 carries or something, like nobody's going to trade him
Yeah, you'll never
after
get him.
that. You can't get him. You can get him now, and that's it. You can get Genty now, and that's it. If you want Judkins, you have to get him before he goes off. And so to do that, it's a little bit of a risk. You have to say, I'm going to
Totally.
trade Kyron for one of those players, but I think you're making out with a bag in those moves.
I agree entirely. I totally agree.
All right, so the Jets and the Bucks. Let's talk about that game now. Who do you like on the Jets side of the ball? Are you starting anybody in this? Or what's the worry meter on out of 10 on Breece Hall?
I'm not like, oh my gosh, worried. I think it's about the
Yeah.
same as we were at the beginning of the season, to be honest, where it's kind of like a 5.
Okay.
In week 1, he had a good performance. You're going to get some of those, and that will happen. And some of those Jets running backs that we thought are, they're kind of good. Braylon Allen and Davis are really not that good, I don't think. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you're going to have some good weeks and some bad weeks, and the bad weeks come because the Jets offense is bad. But I'm not like overly concerned with Breece. I think he's a totally fine running back. I'm more concerned about Garrett Wilson after last week's performance than I was, because I really liked Wilson and Fields going into the season, and they had a great week 1, and then they had an abysmal, god-awful week 2. And
It's
you're
almost
whoa.
like we could have said before the season that it was going to be inconsistent.
And
Right.
but it's like that extreme distance from week 1 to week 2 is what concerns me, because
It's going to be the story of Fields, though.
Yeah, like how confident can you be to start Garrett Wilson every single week? Like, you draft him as a guy who really
You
plays
can't
as your
sit
wide receiver
him.
2. Like, you can't really sit him. So that's concerning, because if he has weeks like he does last week, he's gonna lose you weeks. But week 1, his performance, scoring like 30 points like that, obviously wins you weeks. I'm very concerned about that, like, week to week value for Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, he's a target hog, and he's the only wide receiver there. So you unfortunately cannot sit him unless the Jets are completely debilitated on offense for the next 2 or 3 weeks, where he just goes out there and puts up zeros for all of these games. But I don't think that's going to happen, and I think it's just going to be an inconsistent year where you're going to have to be happy with starting him at your wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 spot, and you might get 23 points from him the week that he scores a touchdown. And then when the Jets are really in the game and Justin Fields is running all over them and playing good ball, but then you also might get a 3-point week where he has 7 or 8 targets, but only 2 catches and isn't able to convert on anything because Justin Fields simply just can't get away from the defense.
Yeah, and that's well said. But the Bucs, on the other hand, they're good. Like, the Bucs are good, and Baker, I love Baker Mayfield. I drafted him in our FantasyBrainz league, and it's just, he is an absolute dog, and he keeps his team in the game. His game-winning drive last week looked very good. A ton of checkdowns that really kind of saved Bucky Irving's week. And he just continues to throw the football. He throws for touchdowns. I love how he manages games. I'm really high on Baker Mayfield. And that leaves guys like Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka with some good value. And then Bucky Irving is a little concerning with his snap share, how much he's going to rush the ball, how effective is he going to be rushing the ball. But with as many catches as he had last week, it's a good sign for him too. But you do have to monitor how much Rachaad White is playing, because he got more carries last week than I would have liked. And they brought him in after a 90-yard drive from Irving to score the touchdown. That was really surprising, which is, I think, a significant talking point from last week's game.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the way that this Bucs backfield is going to shake out is it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to get 100% Bucky Irving all day and night, because he's just not that running back exactly. They like to put him out there to make him in space, but they're totally fine with putting Rachaad White out there to get a few yards, to be involved in the ground game. And that's totally fine. But what I'm confident in now that we were a little bit worried about is Bucky's pass catching role. And that's what I think he's been able to take over from Rachaad White, where you want Bucky on the field on passing downs, because not only is he a good pass protector, but he is also really good just in the flat with the ball in his hands. I think he's going to be an amazing top 12 running back all season. You might not have that super high Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan upside from a guy like Bucky, but you certainly have this great weekly consistency of pass catching upside where he's gonna be, a top 5 back week in, week out. That's what you're really hoping for. But Gabe, I don't want to talk about Bucky anymore, because I can see what's going to happen in this game. I already know what's going to happen in this game with Mike Evans, because this game, Mike Evans is going to score 2 touchdowns, and he's going to have 7 receptions for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's going to be a monster week from Mike Evans today. Are you ready for it?
Dude, I will never hate on Mike Evans. I just can't do it. When you're as productive as Evans has been for as long as he's been, there's nothing that I could look at, or some advanced stat, or some mind read of the game script that says Mike Evans won't have a good week, and I'm ready for it. And it's the same thing with a guy like Keenan Allen, who's been good with the Chargers, where people kind of wrote him off and he comes back and he looks good. It's like these guys are uber talented, Hall of Fame caliber receivers. Absolutely. Why not Mike Evans 2 touchdowns and 95 yards, whatever you said? Why not?
It's gonna happen.
I'm never gonna bet against him.
It's going to happen. But I like how you mentioned Keenan Allen. Let's talk Chargers wide receivers. The Chargers play the Broncos this week. How do you feel about Keenan Allen? Is he a good start every week? I know he's definitely taking away Ladd's upside a little bit. That, to me, was the biggest thing that I've seen with this Chargers wide receiver core, where they're throwing the ball like crazy, which is awesome for the Chargers wide receivers. But we really have seen a cap on Ladd's ceiling. He is no longer to be considered with those target hogs of Nico Collins, Amon-Ra, and BTJ. He's definitely in the tier below them. He's below JSN now confidently.
Totally.
And so it is somewhat disappointing, honestly, for Lad. But obviously he's really good. But how high? I don't know. How do you decipher that receiver core for the rest of the season in week 3?
I think you summed it up very well. That's exactly what it is. Keenan Allen is not a safe start every single week. He's not like an exciting start every single week. I benched him this week for Jameson Williams. I like Jameson Williams upside more than Keenan's.
Yeah, I mean, high scoring game against the Ravens.
Yeah, but I like Keenan's floor week to week. But the Broncos defense, although last week were a little shaky, I think are still pretty strong. And I can't confidently say where the targets are going to go in this game. I think Lad could have a good game. QJ's been in the end zone both weeks now. But Keenan's floor I like, and him to get like 5 to 8 targets a game, hopefully get about 6 receptions for maybe 60 yards and a touchdown here and there is pretty good value, especially where you were drafting him. So having Keenan is a great plus, but he's not like oh my gosh, you have to start him every single week. I think there are some matchup dependent weeks, but QJ is the guy that you need to trade. You need to trade as soon as possible. I don't even think he's a bad player anymore as much as I thought before. Like, he has a role in this offense and he looks better, but he is going to be unbelievably touchdown reliant for the remainder of the season, where you need people to be like, oh my gosh, dude, QJ is breaking out. I'm going to get him for whatever it takes. And in reality, he's going to give you weeks where he doesn't score at all because he has like 2 or 3 receptions for maybe 30 yards and no touchdowns. Where
can I ask you something on him?
Doesn't happen. Yeah, go for it.
Rest of season, would you rather have Quentin Johnston or Devonta Smith?
Wow, that's a good question.
You're saying trade him away.
Yeah.
If you had QJ and somebody offers you Devonta Smith for him, you're going to take it?
No, because I'm not.
Really?
I'm not.
Then how are you trading him away?
I'm not trading for guys like Devonta Smith. I'm taking someone like QJ and another player like a QJ and Kyren.
Okay, what if somebody offers you? What if somebody? Okay,
I want Nico Collins.
I don't know if you can get that,
but I want those guys who are.
Yeah, obviously you want stars, but you're saying trade them away, as in you're trying to sell high, so you're trying to get somebody that you think is good, obviously. But would you take like an Alec Iomanner for him?
Yeah, I like because I think
you would take him over Quentin though.
Yeah, because he's gonna get more receptions week to week.
Okay, I think I would take Quentin Johnston there. Would you take ETN or Quentin Johnston?
ETN someone I'm selling as well, so that's tough. I'd rather have ETN, but I'm also
okay. I would rather have Johnston. Would you rather have Johnston or Baishal Tootin than the guy below him?
I'd rather have Johnston.
How about Johnston or Marvin Harrison?
Harrison's someone I think you should sell as well.
He's disappointing.
He's disappointing. I don't know. I think Marvin Harrison, but only slightly.
Okay, it's interesting. I mean, I think selling him is risky right now, because the way that we viewed this Chargers offense before the season was that we viewed it as they're going to be a run-heavy team. And then they came out here and they decided to be one of the most pass-heavy offenses in the NFL. And that's really exciting for Herbert and all of his receiving options. And unfortunately, Lad isn't getting the majority of the benefit from that, but it is going to guys like QJ and Keenan then, and they're going to have value for the foreseeable future because of that. So they play the Denver Broncos, though, and this game could be a little bit more high scoring than it would have suspected to be, where we thought these were going to be 2 run-heavy defensive teams. Now it's looking like they're pretty aggressive offenses, where we've seen Bo Nix kind of uncork a little bit the first 2 weeks and play pretty aggressively, and that's similar to Herbert as well. Herbert's just obviously played much, much better, but this should be an interesting game. When we look at the Broncos wide receivers, is this the week that we could finally see Pat Bryant score a touchdown? Are we going to see Troy Franklin continue to develop? Or are we going to see Marvin Mims finally get a target share?
I think Franklin is, after last week, is going to really start to kind of emerge.
He's the one?
He's the one. I do. I really believe in what they're doing in Denver. And I think Troy Franklin is that receiver. And I mean, Charlie, I want to hear more like your perspective as someone who has watched more Broncos and have looked at more Broncos than I have as a Broncos fan. Do you agree? Like, is Troy Franklin really that going to step into that role or you brought up two guys who maybe could be involved.
Yeah, Troy Franklin is definitely becoming a more well-rounded wide receiver, where last year he was really just a deep ball guy that dropped deep balls, and so that was kind of disappointing, but he's definitely becoming more well-rounded. He's worked with Bo Nix. They went to college together, so I can definitely see why they have a connection that's working. I do, on the other hand, really worry about Sean Payton and kind of how he manages a team in general, where I think that we're going to see some turnover during this season. I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but I would expect that Pat Bryant is going to get more involved in the slot, which means that would send Marvin Mims to me on the outside more often with Courtland Sutton, and could potentially lead to Troy Franklin reducing his output and production. However, we might see that even if Pat Bryant ends up getting more involved in the slot, that we would see Troy Franklin maintain his outside production, and Marvin Mims will go back to playing more special teams and being more of that free running role in the offense. And we'll kind of see how that plays out. But my biggest gripe with the Broncos right now is, now he's not even playing this week, but it's Evan Ingram. What the hell is up with this guy only playing 40% of the snaps, 35% of the snaps? I thought he was going to be a joker.
Dude, Brainiacs, I've been right about a lot of things, and I can happily say I've been right about a lot of things, but man, was I wrong so far.
We missed this.
Like, he has been bad, and he's not playing. That's like really by far the biggest concern for Evan Ingram owners. I mean, you went
really,
dude, because think about it. You went from, I'm going to start Evan Ingram, he's going to be a workhorse, and get a shitload of passes, to look, I can't even start Evan Ingram. I have waiver wire pickups that
he is unstartable
because you can't even start him. It's similar with like a Mark Andrews. Like you can't even start Evan Ingram, and there's nothing that points toward him getting better because he's not playing enough snaps for him to actually produce.
Why is it Adam Troutman?
I don't know. I don't know.
Like, I really thought when we looked at this Broncos wide receiver core before the season, I was like, there's no way that they don't send Evan Ingram out there every single play and just run him like in the flat to just catch 6 or 7 balls every game. And it's just, he is nowhere in the picture whatsoever. And it is quite shocking, honestly.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I have no idea why, but it just does not look like it's going to turn around at all.
All right. Who do you think's winning, though? Broncos or Chargers?
I like the Chargers at home, but the game's going to be close.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. Okay.
It's going to be a tough game, but the Broncos need it more than Chargers do, obviously, after last week.
All right, so we've got football coming up now in 5 minutes. Everyone enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy the games. Enjoy your teams. Bears play the Cowboys. Broncos play the Chargers. I'm excited for week 3. I think my fantasy teams are going to go out there and do well. Gabe, you almost hit last week on those 3 touchdowns you gave me. You went 2 out of 3. Give me 3 more, though. I need 3 guys that are going to score touchdowns this week.
Nico Collins is getting in the end zone for the first time.
I love that.
Jordan Mason will score against the Bengals. And then someone who I really like at some pretty plus odds is, I think, Ramondre Stevenson might get in the end zone this week. Yeah. So I'm going to give you Ramondre.
That sounds pretty good. Guy. All right, Brainiacs. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Have some fun watching ball. And
if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out leatherbrains.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.